Welcome back to the Pewtercast. It is time for the second half of our Final Thoughts episode. You guys may have already heard the episode. We got to talk to Mark Cook, but Ren and I also spent quite a bit of time giving our final thoughts on this Bucks versus Redskins game and really what it means for the rest of the season as a whole, where the Buccaneers are, lots of things. So if you haven't listened to that yet, just go back in the podcast feed one episode back and you can catch that. But for right now, Ren, welcome back, by the way, I should say.
Hello.
There you are. But for right now, it is time to get to the emails. And we've got quite a few emails.
I'm Mrs. Doubtfire. Where are the children? Hello.
Toodaloo.
Toodaloo. Thought you were going to leave me hanging there.
I was thinking about it. I was like, should I say anything? Just let him hang out there and see what he says.
Uh-oh. Ren's rolling.
Before we get to emails, though, Ren, this is usually the part of the show where we take a look at our iTunes reviews, and pulling it up, I see that as right now, we have no new iTunes reviews after receiving a bunch of them in a couple weeks ago. So,
well, it can't be because of my impressions.
I think it's because of how you've been signing off with "You always like to talk Buccaneers football." I think that's been
stale.
That's been what's dry. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, if you guys would like to shoot us an iTunes review, we would love to be able to read it here on the show. We always prefer the 5-star kind, of course, but we'll read whichever ones you guys put out there. All you have to do is go over to iTunes, search for us in the podcast feed, leave us a little rating and review. We'll see that, and we'll read that on the next episode of our Final Thoughts show. But with that, Ren, we do have a lot of emails. So why don't we go ahead and jump into this and see where these crazy guys are going to take us. Our first email comes to us from Jamie. And it says, how's it going, Brent and Ren? This is your loyal listener, Subject Jester. Subject Jester joins us for the Instant Cast quite often. He's usually over in the is he in both? Is he one of our guys that does both YouTube and Mixler? I'm not sure. But he's been with us for quite a while.
Yes, he has.
Yes, he has. So he says, first, let me start by saying great job on the podcast. You guys are great. I listen to each show every week, and you guys are by far my favorite Bucks podcast out there. And I listen to quite a few, but you guys are by far the best. But enough with the brown nosing. Ha ha ha. You can keep that going, Jamie.
Did he put in the ha ha ha?
He put in LOL.
Okay.
So he says, what can I say about this game that hasn't been said about this team all season?
Nothing. Next email.
Exactly.
Just kidding.
End it there. Let's move on. We spent an hour talking about the same thing for all year long. He does go. He says, it's just not consistent. One game, the defense does good, but the offense doesn't show up, or the offense shows up to play, but the defense lets the opponent score 30 points by the first half, and you can't even enjoy the rest of the season because I already know what's coming, which is a below 500 record again. So let's look towards next year, where I think Cutter has to go, and we have to gut and rebuild our entire defense and just keep key players like Evans, Davis, JPP, Beckwith, David, and Levante David, and re-sign Quan if he wants to stay. Ren, we're probably going to get this a lot throughout these emails, so let's go ahead and address this. One of the things that's been out on Twitter, and I will call this a severe overreaction, is people saying, let's get rid of everybody. Just cut the entire team and start over.
It has been sort of a thing out there. Who would you keep? If you're building a team, who would you keep?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. You can't fire 53 players. Okay, you can't fire 30 players. I mean, what's the average turnover from roster turnover from season to season, Ren?
Cutter says about 30%.
About 30% on a 53-man roster, so we're looking at a third. We're probably looking at about a little less than 20, so maybe about 15 or so.
15, 30, 45. No, a little more.
Or so, yeah. So between 15 and 20, so 16, 17 people, whatever. You can't, in a 53-man roster, keep your top 10 people and expect to re-sign 43 others.
They're going to be better? Yeah.
Right.
43 others that don't have a job.
Right.
Oh, but don't forget the draft.
But don't forget the draft. Right.
So there's
who? But I mean, if we talk about who are the players you have to keep, and then everyone else who's expendable, I think Justin Evans. Well, I'll go from the back to the front. I think Justin Evans is you have to keep him. Is Chris Conti? No. Is Jordan Whitehead? Yeah, you have to. He's still a rookie. We've got him for nothing. Isaiah Johnson, no. Andrew Adams, I got to tell you, I like this kid Adams. I like what he's been doing. I don't know if it's that he's really good or he's just on a really bad team and he looks good. I don't know, but I do like what this kid Adams has been able to bring to the table.
Do you have to keep him? No.
He's not a must keep. I think you got to keep Carlton Davis.
Yes.
Right. Do we have to keep MJ Stewart?
Yes.
I mean, I guess we do, right?
Yes, yeah. Can't judge him off like a 6 game.
Yeah, I mean, we still got VH3 for one more year on his rookie deal.
Yeah.
That's right. So
you need more than 3 cornerbacks.
Right.
2.
Right. So we have him. Brent Grimes can be gone. Did I miss anybody else in the line in the cornerback deal? That don't we have like a Harris or something?
Well, Devontae Harris, Ryan Smith.
Oh yeah. Okay, Ryan Smith. So this would be Ryan Smith's last year, right? No, he has one more. No. Yeah. This is his last year because he came in with. Didn't he come in with Jamison Quan and all those guys, or did he come in the next year?
I don't. I know he came in with Beninock. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
He doesn't need it. He's not a must keep.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, he's not a must keep.
He's not even starting on a defense that we're gutting.
Right.
He's not a must keep.
There you go. Fair enough. So we cut Smith, and there's plenty of people who get cut in their rookie contract. So Smith is gone. JV and Elliott we don't have to keep. I mean, okay. Well, with that, do we have to keep VH3?
Yes.
I think I agree. I think we do. He's shown us enough. We have to keep him. Okay, so moving forward, all the
linebackers.
You think you can get rid of all the linebackers?
No, keep all the linebackers.
You think we have to keep them? Really?
Yeah.
We have to keep Quan.
Who are you going to find better? Excuse me. I'm sorry if anybody heard that. Who are you going to find better than? Well, Quan's going to come a lot cheaper than he's going to come below market value.
Mm-hmm. I was going to wish you would have signed that contract.
We still have Levante David, and Beckwith is still in the rookie contract.
Okay. Well, I'll give you Beckwith being under the rookie contract. I don't know that we have to keep Quan. I really don't.
Okay.
I don't. And I'll tell you something. I don't know that we have to keep Levante. Now, I don't know. Now, you come down to the question. You're going to cut
Quan and Levante David over MJ Stewart and Jordan Whitehead.
It has nothing to do with the Whitehead and the Stewart thing have to do with the fact that they're still in that rookie contract. I don't know that you necessarily have to bring those two guys back either, especially Stewart. Anyway, this will be a weird exercise, but I mean, there's Quan Levante. But my point being, I don't know that we have to bring back Quan or Levante. You have the question: who do we put in their place? Okay, and that's why that's my point of getting to this. You can't cut everybody on the team because you have to replace them with people. Right?
That's a fact.
Right. So, and you're not going to be able to replace all of these people. I mean, defensive line. Is there anyone on the defensive line that you think this guy is a star? We have to keep this guy no matter what. JPP?
I would keep everybody on the defensive line except for Golston.
Okay.
Maybe Noah Spence, but I'd like to see more of him. At this point, I'm just thinking sort of a coaching clash right now.
Mm-hmm. Bo Allen?
I think Bo Allen's doing his job.
Okay. Mitch Unrein? We haven't seen anything out of him.
Mitch Unrein doesn't count.
Yeah. I mean,
he's not even on the team. He's not on the team.
Right.
Yeah. And I would say 85% sure he's never going to play another NFL snap ever.
That's probably true at this point. So, but I mean, it just to suffice it to say, guys, we can't cut the whole damn team. You can't do it. You can't even cut the majority of the team. All right, the guys are the guys. They're going to come back. Now, you know who you can cut? You can cut every single coach that's on this team. And you could argue certainly there are some that have to go. We could argue about whether or not all of them have to go. But that's I think where you make that wholesale change is there. But anyway, yeah. He says on offense, Jackson is gonna go. You think Deshaun Jackson is leaving next year?
Too early to tell.
Yeah, I agree.
Because that's going to be a salary cap thing. How he does, that might even come down to a Jameis thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he did come out and say he wants his finished career as a Buccaneer, and maybe he means it. I've never really heard Deshaun Jackson not say something he doesn't mean.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of factors into that. If they definitely can let him go, because he does have a high price tag, and there's quite a few guys behind him that are cheaper that can do things he can't, but he can do one thing that no one else can.
Yeah,
and that's get behind the defense.
Yeah. And stay behind the defense.
Yeah, and do it constantly.
Right. He says, I personally don't want him to leave, but like Coach Tomlin said, I want volunteers, not hostages. We also have to find a solid left tackle and a solid right guard. If Donovan Smith wants to stay, then let's move him to right tackle and let Dotson groom him because he's not left tackle material. Ren, we've spent a lot of time defending Donovan Smith over the years. He is not having a stellar season. I don't know if I would say this is his worst season, but he doesn't look like he's playing in a contract year to me right now.
Yeah, that's sort of the thing that's kind of the bugaboo where you can sort of make excuses, I don't want to say excuses, but give reasons why people are don't like him. You go, well, you got to think of this, got to think of that. But he's supposed to be playing his best football.
Right. Now.
Yeah. What's it, his fourth year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's in his fourth year, and but he never misses a game, man. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
it really is. At the left
best ability is availability.
Yeah, but especially at that spot, so it's a big deal. Now, we talked about a bunch of pods ago when we said, okay, which of these guys might leave the Buccaneers? And it was like Donovan Smith, Quan, Alley, and Jameis, I believe what our discussion was. We all agreed that Jameis would stay, and this is before the suspension and all that stuff. Alley's gotten re-signed. Quan's hurt now. And Donovan Smith. And I said that Donovan Smith is just one of those guys where, I just don't think that – he just hits me as one of those guys that will go wherever the most money is.
Sure.
He understands about things outside of football. He wants to have a life outside of football. He wants to have a life after football's over. So he just sort of strikes me as a guy that is there to make as much money as possible. He doesn't love the game. Like Quan said things like, I'd play for free. Like Donovan Smith would not play for, and not a lot of people would. So, but I'm not saying it's a bad trade or a good trade. I'm just saying of all of those guys, I still think that holds true for Donovan Smith because I think he's going to outprice himself, which means if he has him and his agent have an unrealistic value, like a league-wide value of what he's at, I don't think the Bucs will pay it.
Right.
Now I don't, I always say left tackles don't grow on trees. I would not be adverse to the idea of drafting a left tackle this year and moving Donovan over to the other side and sort of pushing Dotson out the door. I would not be adverse to that.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Right, but he's not going to make as much money as a right tackle as he would as a left tackle, or presumably so.
Right. But so I think of those two scenarios, of Donovan Smith signing and staying the left tackle, of Donovan Smith signing and becoming the right tackle, because he has to sign this year.
Yeah.
Signing and becoming the right tackle, or Donovan Smith leaving free agency for more money. I think more money's one. Him leaving's one. Him staying and being the left tackle's two, and him staying and being switched is three.
Yeah, I mean, and that hinges on who do we get to replace him. I mean, and this has been the argument we've had defending Donovan and other players. Is great. Who are we going to get? Now, if we can get that other left tackle, that's fine. But as we say, it's really not as simple as saying, let's just cut him and find a solid left tackle. That is not easy to do. And that is not,
because he is a solid left tackle.
Yeah.
He's just not an elite left tackle.
There you go. That's fair. I think that is an absolutely fair way to say it. He is solid. He is not elite. And yeah, we could certainly critique that anymore. All right. Jamie goes on. He says, with the QB situation, I just don't know if it's time for us to find another QB, because I don't think Winston is our guy. The offense runs better with Fitzpatrick rather than Winston. And I think we should re-sign Fitzpatrick for another year, or let's give Bridgewater a chance and let's draft somebody. And Ren, I know you're going to give me an earful about what I just said, but it's okay. Like you say, it's just my opinion. But I'll let you guys discuss. Thanks again for the entertainment, and go Bucks. Sent from my iPhone.
You're welcome. Yes, I am. You just can't go give Bridgewater a try. Like, a lot of people are going to be interested in Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah. You just let's give Bridgewater a try. I still think, and he's right, like, about, the earful. I just think I don't think the organization's giving up on Jameis. I think it would be stupid to give up on Jameis. I think you need to get Ryan Fitzpatrick out of the building as soon as the season's over, and never bring him back. Like, if you're keeping Jameis Winston, Ryan Fitzpatrick's got to go. Like, these guys, not they don't like each other, not that it's thing, but Ryan Fitzpatrick, and there is a long, long history of seeing this, that he's the guy that's good enough to replace your starting quarterback, but in the long term, he's not the guy
to be your starting quarterback.
Yeah, he wasn't the guy that he was good at. Like, he'll show you that he can replace your starting quarterback, and then when you give him the position, he becomes the guy he just replaced.
The guy who puts up 3 points on the board.
Yeah. So in terms of ball over. So like Fitzpatrick should be gone, in my opinion. Like, thank you very much. You really didn't do anything wrong. You were just you. We just thought you were something else. As the Texans did, Jets did,
at this
the
point,
Bills did, the Bengals did.
But I mean, like, at this point, it can't be like, if we're going to keep Jameis, right? It cannot be good for Jameis to continue to have Fitzpatrick around.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
I mean, like, for his own... I don't
for the wellness of the team.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Not, like I said, it's not Fitzpatrick's fault.
Right.
What are you going to do? Tell him not to try? Or when you go in there, when you get in there for the first 3 games because, our starting quarterback was a knucklehead, don't try to win. Win the game, but don't
win the game, but don't have fun so you don't enjoy it.
And don't do it really good. Like, don't set NFL records while doing it. Just like turn the ball over a couple times and then have the field goal kicker win it despite of you as the clock runs out. Can you do that 3 games in a row for us? All right, go get him, Tiger.
Right. Here's what I'm going to say. And I think I said this a few podcasts ago, but I feel it bears reiterating, because we keep hearing and this is a phrase that I need Bucs fans to get out of their vocabulary. Bring in so-and-so and give them a try. Bring them in here and give them a shot. Listen, if you want to bring somebody in and give them a shot in camp, cool. You do not bring somebody in and give them a shot in one of only 16 games that you have in a season. Let's bring, even talking about our own guys, let's bring Alex Kappa up and give him a shot. You don't give people a shot in the game. Now, Ren, I think you would probably advocate for, as would I, except for the fact that we're not in practice, so we really don't know,
Nobody is.
Seeing Alex Kappa in a game. the question I have is, why can't Alex Kappa win the job from Caleb Benenoch in practice? Like, is Alex Kappa really that bad? Or are they just that blind? You know,
I think they're just that slow to change, man.
You're not wrong.
You know,
you're not wrong.
If the more you start to look at it, Cutter's trust in Gruden, or God, I just ruined my big reveal. Cutter's trust in rookies is starting to rival Gruden's trust in rookies. Like, just doesn't like them.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, and you know, I might be wrong, but you know, like the Ronald, if the guy doesn't absolutely have to play, we're just gonna keep him in the back and bring him along slowly. You know, so it's just, you know, you've seen it with Jones, you've seen it with Vay, you've seen it with Kappa. Justin Evans didn't start right away last year. Who else didn't start right away that it should have when he was head coach, or that ended up starting a few games in? I feel like Beckwith was not the starting outside linebacker. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah,
Beckwith was the starting Mike because Quan was injured those first couple of games, if I remember right. And then Quan came back and he kicked out to the side and replaced Devontae Bond, I think is what happened.
So I just don't know if it's Kappa hasn't shown enough in practice, or they just don't trust him enough to put him in there. But it's the point where Benenoch's almost an embarrassment to other NFL linemen.
Listen,
I mean, not like Buck fans, but oh, I'm an NFL lineman. Oh yeah, I am too. What's your name, Caleb Benenoch? Yeah, no, you're not an NFL lineman.
Right. Right. Here's the thing. You know, I made the argument last time that you know, he should be able to go in and win a job. And that's how you see a change happen in the NFL, is somebody beats you in practice, right? The other way you actually make a change is you play bad enough that you just lose your spot. You get benched or injured. Right. But I mean, outside of weird things like that, you just play bad enough and lose your spot. Caleb Benenoch, I think, has to have played bad enough to lose his spot. But we don't – my point being with all of this, guys – you don't give people a shot in one of your 16 games. Unless, you're already in the playoffs, everything's locked up, and it's that last game or two. That's the only time you really give people a shot.
The people are talking about Ryan Griffin?
We will get to that.
Oh, really?
That is coming. But right. I'm saying I see this all over the place. Let's bring in such and such player and give him a shot. Let's bring this guy over and give him a shot. Let's put this over here and give him a shot. We've got to get that out of our vocabulary, guys. You don't give people a shot during a game in the NFL. They get shots during camp to go in and impress. Other than that, they have to earn it. And they have to usually do it in practice. All right. We got two that came in back-to-back from DeQuan. Really short, but I'm interested to see your response here, Ren. He says, firing everybody is not the answer. Hey, we just talked about that. More than half of our team, including the staff, will be employed the same week that we get rid of them. So stop with the angry, you're fired speeches. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what we just talked about. He says, but anywho, secondly, we should never have fired Lovey, point blank, period.
They didn't try to fire Lovey. They didn't want to fire Lovey. Lovey fired himself. Said it many, many times. Many, many times. His defense was terrible.
Yeah.
His defensive staff was terrible. It was
terrible.
Talk about an insult to other defensive NFL coaches. It was terrible. And the story is, and it's been out there from people that follow the Bucs. They've said it. No one's refuted it from the Buccaneers. The story goes, Jason Light and the Glazers had a meeting. Jason Light goes to Lovey and tells Lovey, hey, you got to change this personnel on your defensive staff. Lovey Smith says no. Jason Light says okay. Jason Light calls the Glazers. Jason Light hangs the phone with the Glazers. Call Lovey. Hey, Lovey, come in tomorrow. They want to meet with you. Just tell me I'm fired. Okay, you're fired. Right. That's how it went down. Lovey fired himself.
DeQuan goes on and says, can we stop the quiz hate? Believe it or not, he is our most reliable back that we have. Give credit where credit is due. Ren. And that's actually what he says. I didn't add that for emphasis. That's actually what's it.
He is our most reliable back in pass protection, but he's not the difference between him and Peyton Barber as pass protection, I think, was negligible. The difference between him running the ball and Peyton Barber is, I'm trying to think of a word that's not, I won't sound like I'm exaggerating. It's a pretty big gap in between what Peyton Barber can do with the ball in his hands and what Quiz Rogers can do with the ball in his hands.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind Quiz Rogers. Really, I do mind Quiz Rogers being on the team. I do.
Mm-hmm.
He's not our most, what do you call him, reliable or consistent? In the email, what do you call him?
Oh, reliable. He called him reliable. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, he's not. Like, he can't run the ball as good as Barber. I think Barber can block and pass protection just as well as him. And Quiz Rogers, like, when he makes, like, he gets been getting those passes over the middle, dump downs for the past 2 weeks, you know. And he's been doing something with him. But 9 times out of 10, the first guy that gets to him tackles him. You know, we used to be like, last year we would say, hey, Peyton Barber gets what's there. You know what Peyton Barber's doing this year? He's getting what's there, and he's getting you more. Peyton Barber is making guys miss. Peyton Barber is breaking tackles. Peyton Barber is running over people. You know what Jaquiz Rogers does when he gets the ball? Someone gets near him, he turtles. He puts 2 hands on the ball, and he puts his head down. And I think if no one hit him, he'd fall down eventually anyway, because he's so top heavy. Like, he'd probably get a few extra yards. You know, I haven't been hit yet, but when he went to try to regain his balance, he's already like falling forward, and like, he's just, there's nothing he does better than any other back on the team.
I would agree with that.
Now, if the team, the only reason he's in there is for pass protection. Now, he's been, like I said, he's been leaking out a lot and getting those little dump offs and picking up first downs. Mm-hmm. But watch all those plays and tell me that, you know, Rojo or Barber or even Sean Wilson couldn't do exactly what he did and probably give you more with that much space in the open field. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, honestly, you know, I say this all the time, and I know it's maybe starting to sound stupid, but if you told me to line up in the backfield, you hike the ball, I sort of weave my way through the offensive line, you know, because I don't have to block anybody. I weave and I curl out 6 yards down the field and wait for Fitzpatrick to throw me the ball and catch it and turn around and run straight ahead until I get tackled. I can do that. I can. Like, how many plays I'll last? Probably 3.
That was going to be my question. How many times could you do that, though? Jaquiz does 3. Get up every time and do it again.
Exactly. So probably 3, maybe 4. Depends on if, like, I start to slide. Like, maybe I slide when people get near me. But there's nothing he does that anybody else on the team can do. Like, I get it. He is consistent. But he's consistently below average for an NFL running back.
Yeah. Listen.
And you can't even hand him the ball anymore. Like, like, Cutter's figured it out. He doesn't even give him the ball anymore. Like, you can't. There's no point. Like, do not hand him the ball. So he's not really a running back. He's Charles Sims again, with less ability and escapability.
Yeah. Here's what I still don't understand. For years, even under Cutter, we ran 3 running backs on this team on the active roster, and one of them was deactivated. We only ran 2 active running backs in a game. For the last 2 years, we've kept 4 on the roster, and we've had 3 active during a game. Yeah. I don't understand why that's changed. And now that Sean Wilson has been placed on IR for the year, and we'll get to this probably more in our Buck in the News show, they have re-signed Dare Ogunbowale.
They moved him up.
And did they move him up?
They moved him up to practice squad.
And they moved him up to the active roster. Is that what it was?
Yes.
Okay. So once again, we have 4 guys on our active roster. Now, whether or not Dare is going to be active, I think just depends on whether or not Rojo's hurt or not. But I don't understand why we are running with 4 running backs on this team and eating up that roster space. Now, I don't know what we would do with that extra roster space. We're also running with three quarterbacks on our team and have been for the last couple of years. So, you know, that I just, you know, let's go with 2 running backs. That'll be fine. You know, Rojo and Peyton. That's really all we need on this team. We don't need Jaquiz returning kickoffs or whatever. We don't need Jaquiz getting in there. He is the veteran running back in this group, Ren. He's got the most seniority, but I don't think that necessarily qualifies him to necessarily just eat up a spot. So, all right, let's move off of Jaquiz. Thank you. And our next email comes into us from Paul. Paul says, love the show. I started following the Bucs more closely last year when we moved to Land O'Lakes from Kentucky. Hey, Paul, I'm from Lexington. Where are you from? Shoot me an email. I'd like to know. He says, so you can call me Lando Paul. All right, Lando Paul.
Orlando Paul?
He says, no, he went to Land O'Lakes. I'm going to call him Kentucky Paul because go Big Blue. Anyway, he says, so this is what win now mode looks like? Good point. Says, I've been hearing that this team has a lot of talent, but I'm not seeing it. Hey, this is probably worth noting. This is from a guy who is not a longtime Bucs fan. He's just sort of coming into this. So providing this sort of fresh perspective, like, really? You guys keep saying you have all this talent, but I don't see it. I don't see what's happening on the field.
What's your record again?
Exactly.
How many starting quarterbacks do you have?
Why am I following this team now?
Why do you keep throwing it to Jaquiz Rogers?
Who's Jaquiz? Which one's he? Yeah. I can't tell by the numbers.
Mr. Consistency? Mr. Consistency fumbled the ball. Just kidding.
I can't read the numbers yet. I haven't learned those yet. Neither have we, Paul. He says, talking about talent on the roster, he says, if they did have all the talent on that roster, then you would think that the talented people would occasionally make plays despite poor coaching. I know, right? Our defensive line was dominated by a bunch of guys that Washington found tailgating that morning.
True story.
Yeah, and go back and listen to our Final Thoughts show. We talked about that. They should have done more, but they didn't. I think this organization has a losing culture that requires significant change. Woo-hoo. Just firing Dirk alone won't be enough. The GM, as well as some of the players like McCoy and Djax and others, needed to be traded or cut. I'll even include Jameis in that too. If he's really the franchise quarterback, then why isn't he playing when we need to win? If he can't be trusted or counted on now, then I don't see when he would ever be able to be trusted. Go Bucks. I think this is really interesting, Ren. This is coming from a person who is brand new to
no
this.
idea what he's talking about. No,
do what?
Ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, but he's looking at it from a pure.
I'm a fan last year guy.
Right, hey, all of this stuff is supposed to happen, but why isn't it? They're not putting up the points on the board. They're not doing these things. Something's got to be wrong. It's obviously not as good as we think it is. So,
so welcome to the first year of the next 30 years of your life being a Bucs fan.
This is what it's like being a Bucs fan, Paul. It's welcome to the club.
You're absolutely right.
And once you're on ship, we don't do deserters. So,
oh yeah, you're stuck. Yeah, there's no way out, man.
Yeah, you can't get out once you're here. Sorry.
Hotel Buccaneer, California.
Okay, two things he says here. Let me hit on this one first. I'm talking about Jameis, Ren. If he really is the franchise quarterback, then why isn't he playing when we need him to win? If he can't be trusted or counting on now, then why would we ever trust or count on him? I think that's a fair question.
I think it's a fair question too, and I think that's why everyone freaked out and overreacted when Dirk Cutter said that Jameis wasn't going to be starting against the New York Giants on Monday. And there's a lot of things that go into this. And here's the one that I have read coming from Rick Stroud that this was not like an easy decision.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was a very much back and forth decision between who they should start and so who should start against the Giants. So I really think that it comes down to if you're just trying to win one football game, because that's all they're trying to do. If you're just trying to win one football game, and it might even come down to the type of defense they run.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just trying to win this one football game, what happens to the New York Giants, that they feel that Ryan Fitzpatrick gives him the better chance to win. Now, the only thing that Ryan Fitzpatrick has over Jameis Winston is experience.
Yeah. So I will go back to something I said a couple of podcasts ago. I think it might have been the one right after Jameis got benched. But what I want to see out of this organization from here on out, and I'll stick by this, is I want them to win. And I want them to trot out who they think is going to be the best person to actually win. If, to allude to a conversation we had earlier, if the reason that Cutter is not playing Jameis is because he's mad at him, that's not a good enough reason. If the reason he's playing Fitzpatrick is because he truly thinks, or he truly is, Fitzpatrick is the best chance to win against New York, not he's our best chance to win going forward for the rest of time, not whatever. But he provides us the best chance to win against New York, then I'd like to. Then that's where I can get with them. I'm with everybody else on the other side of that, though, of saying, look, we've got to see what we have in Jameis. Jameis isn't going to be, he can't get much worse than 4 turnovers in a game, can he? I mean, he'd almost have to try, right? So, and let's be honest. Really, since Fitzpatrick has come in and started, he hasn't looked great. He hasn't looked like a star.
Oh, he's 0-2.
Yeah. And in that 0-2, he hasn't, he's had some good flashes and he's had some not great flashes. And by the way,
and 5 turnovers.
Jameis does that too. Jameis has great flashes and he has some really boneheaded flashes. So, while I may not agree that Fitzpatrick gives us the best chance, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. Dirk Cutter doesn't really tell us why he thinks one does, but that's where I really want to see them make these kinds of decisions. But it is an interesting thought in regards to Jameis Winston to me. Of if we can't trust him now, why would we trust him in the future? And the only thing I think I can say to that is well, this coaching staff doesn't trust him, and the coaching staff very well might not be here next year. So,
and also you have to look at it this way. It's are you more? Would you trust yourself more now, or trust yourself more when you were 24?
Me? I would trust myself more now.
Yeah, I think everyone would, and that's kind of what it is. It's. I know that I feel. Well, I shouldn't say I know. I feel that. Reporters and I should say some of the reporters and some of the Bucs fans are reading into this as in Jameis is done, or Cutter doesn't trust Jameis, or the Glazers have turned on Jameis. We even heard Mark Cook say when we interviewed him in the last pod that if Jameis is inactive, that's a sign they moved on. I don't believe any of that. I just don't. I think it's as simple as that. It was a very hard decision, and they think Ryan Fitzpatrick gives them the best chance to win against the Giants. Now, if Ryan Fitzpatrick has another game like he did against Washington and Jameis Winston doesn't start, then there's something else going on. Those things might be true. Maybe they are starting to move along from Jameis. But this has been a extremely, extremely difficult year for Jameis Winston as a person. I mean, when I don't eat enough, I get, the hangry.
Grumpy and irritable. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so imagine
all the stuff that Jameis has going on.
Yeah, you get suspended for 3 games, and basically you get told matter of factly, if you do this again, we can kick you out of the league. For any infraction. So now you're not allowed to go out your house without a chaperone, basically, because someone, might, accuse you of something that's going to lead to an investigation that's going to lead you to possibly losing your livelihood. Then, your girlfriend lives with you. Oh, by the way, she's pregnant. And oh, by the way, 2.5 years ago, I'm getting accused of sexually assaulting someone. So you mad at me, honey? Yeah, I think she's mad at you. So now they're engaged. He has
again.
He has a son.
Yeah.
He goes to training camp. They tell him that he can't be who he is.
Right.
Is that you have to leave from behind. You have a great preseason. Then the guy that's replacing you, who, according to some reports, people in the locker room like better than you, goes out and set NFL records 3 games in a row for throwing 400 yards. Oh, and by the way, he beat the New Orleans Saints. He beat the World Championships Philadelphia Eagles, and almost came back from 30 points down to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
Then he goes out his next game, and the defense gives up the booty, and you're down by 6 touchdowns, and they throw you in there against a defense where the offensive line can't keep the defensive can't keep Chicago's defensive line off you. All right, go ahead. Then you go out the next game, you throw 2 picks, one bounces off some guy's head, you throw 4 touchdowns, and the fan base blames you for it.
Mm-hmm.
The game after that, you had on one drive, you had to put the ball in the end zone 3 separate times before you get the touchdown. You put your team up twice by 14 points. Defense loses that lead twice. You drive the team down for the game-winning field goal. He misses it.
Yeah.
You go to overtime. You drive down again. He makes it. What do people talk about? You took a bad sack. Then you go out to Cincinnati, have a meltdown, shockingly, and now people are saying that you have no future with the team. Like, no one trusts you. Like, if you look, it is mind-boggling about how fast this narrative of Jameis Winston has no future with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because it came after one game where he threw 4 interceptions. Like, it is mind-boggling. So, having said all that, I will once again reiterate my stance on Jameis Winston. Everything I just said is true. Everything you say about him, about turning the ball over, needs to get better with this, needs to get better with that, I agree 100%. I think statistically he's improved at every category that matters. I think that he's taking care of the ball better in the pocket. I think he had an absolute total meltdown in the Cincinnati game. Do I think that's going to happen again? Probably, but I think everyone's going to throw 4 interceptions, once in a while. If Jameis Winston is still a quarterback for the Buccaneers when he's 32, I don't think he'll ever have a 4 interception game. And then we can start talking about him as when you start to compare him to the Cams, to the Matt Ryan, to the Drew Breeses, to the Tom Brady's. Like, name me a quarterback under the age of 25 that has to put up. I mean, he has no defense.
Okay, so I'm sorry. You talk about that. You talk about Drew Brees. We talk about Matty Ice. You talk about Cam Newton. All of these guys who are in their 3rd, 4th contract. Cam Newton might be at the end of his 2nd contract right now. Mm-hmm. Like, they've all been in the league twice, 3, 4 times as long as Jameis has.
Yeah.
And you want to sit there and say, well, he's the worst, he's the worst quarterback in the division.
Well, he is.
He's the youngest quarterback in the division. He's the least amount of experience in the division. I mean,
he's also thrown for the most yards in his first years in the NFL in his division.
Right. And I mean, I'm not saying that all of that excuses everything. And yeah, then we turn around, we look at like a Jared Goff who, the guys out there in LA having a good, super good year.
With the best running back in the league.
Yeah.
With the best play call in the league. With the best defensive coordinator in the league.
Right.
With the best defensive names in the league.
And then you have Carson Wentz, right?
What?
Then we have Carson Wentz from Philadelphia.
Who's really good. Who's probably better than Jameis from top to bottom.
Right. So, you have those 2 rookies, right, who come out and are immediately
Carson Wentz had a run game. Carson Wentz had a defense.
Exactly.
Jameis Winston has never had a defense since he's been a Buccaneer. Never. Had a run game his rookie year. He has to do it all himself every single week, and then you jump on his ass for trying to do it himself every single week.
Right.
So having said all this, and so I'm just sort of wrap it up. Was it Land O'Lakes Dan? Lako Dan?
Paul.
Dan?
Lando Paul. Sorry, Paul.
Lando Paul. All those are the reasons why I think that you keep him, because it can't be this bad his whole career. And as soon as it doesn't get this bad, I think he's going to be really, really good, because I think he's pretty good right now.
And this is where I need more of an explanation from Cutter as to why they're going with Fitzpatrick over him. Because the excuse is we just think he gives us the best chance, and you leave it at that without actually diving into more of that, that doesn't fly with me. I need more, because I also have the last 3 years and change of what you just said to sit back and go, I know Jameis had those 4 picks. It was right for him to be benched in that game against Cincinnati. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. But, to basically say, okay, he's gotten benched and now he's basically lost his job for the rest of the season to Ryan Fitzpatrick, or they just really think Fitzpatrick gives them the better chance for XYZ. I need more information on what they're doing with that. And I know that they're not going to give it to us. It doesn't make sense to me right now. So,
well, you got to try.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where it falls on the reporters,
Yeah. Yeah. So, hey, media access credentials. We should have those. All right. Moving on. Thank you, Paul, for your email. Next one comes into us from Adam. Adam says, I have seen Jameis Winston play in 49 Bucs games. I've seen Ryan Fitzpatrick play in 13 Bucs games. I've seen Ryan Griffin play in 0 Bucs games. I'm not here to say that Griffin is better than either of those 2 quarterbacks. However, here we go, Ren. The man deserves a shot to play for the Bucs team. I thought it was a shame that he didn't get a shot in what was a lost season last year. And if he doesn't get a shot in this lost season, then what is he doing on this roster? At the very least, the Bucs front office needs to find out if he can be a capable backup quarterback. And the only way to know that is to see him play in a regular season game. Also, it sends an important message to the team, especially the other quarterbacks, that continuous turnovers is not tolerated and will come with consequences. To be clear, I still believe that Jameis can be our top-tier quarterback, and I hope he gets another shot in Tampa with a new coaching staff. However, I don't need to see 7 more games of Jameis this season. Let's find out what Ryan Griffin can do with at least 2 games this season. What are your thoughts, guys? Adam, from Adam.
Cole Gardner.
Yeah. Listen, if it wasn't for Cole Gardner, Ryan Fitzpatrick would not be on this team.
No, if it wasn't for Cole Gardner, we would see Ryan Fitzpatrick. He would have had 3 games last year, and we would know this.
No, Ryan Griffin.
Oh, Ryan Griffin. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
That's what I mean.
Yes.
If it wasn't for Cole Gardner,
yes.
Ryan Fitzpatrick would not be on this team because Ryan Griffin
correct.
would have been our backup quarterback last year.
Let me take you back to a story, old Buccaneers fans. I'm just going to break this down for you real quick. The reason I have always been mad at Cole Gardner is because, like you, Adam, I've always wanted to see what Ryan Griffin had. And 2 years ago, it was the perfect opportunity to see what Ryan Griffin had because he was always playing with the Ds and some of the C players, the guys that weren't even going to make the practice squad. Like, they were just in there to fill in for the second half of, the third game and play the fourth game so, your A's and B's don't get injured. Well, last year it got set up where it was actually, or 2 years ago, it was actually a QB competition. It was going to be between Ryan Fitzpatrick and Ryan Griffin. And I went to every single training camp that was open to the public, and it was like 13 of them. And I sat there and I watched it practice after practice after practice after practice. Ryan Fitzpatrick stink it up. I mean, couldn't throw the ball. Like, couldn't throw it, hit a barn, couldn't throw it in the lake. Like, it was bad. It was really bad. And Ryan Griffin, and I've said this, go back in the pods. If you took the nameplate and the position they were drafted off, if where you were drafted didn't count and you took the name off the back of the jersey and you put Winston, Fitzpatrick, and Griffin 2 years ago in training camp and you went, who's the best quarterback to run this team? You would have pointed to Ryan Griffin. He was that accurate. He was that good. He was that decisive. Later on, second game of preseason, Cole Gardner misses a block. Ryan Griffin rolls out to the left, setting up to throw a ball down the field. The defensive tackle that, Cole Gardner decided not to block gets like a 15, 20-yard head start. Boom. Blindsides Ryan Griffin. Lands, fats on him, which is illegal now, by the way. Fats on him, hits on his shoulder. Ryan Griffin hits his shoulder, goes on the IR. We're stuck with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Fast forward a little bit more that season, Jameis Winston hurts his shoulder, gets sat down for 3 games. We get Ryan Fitzpatrick goes in 2-1. That's your window. That's why if you've been listening to this long enough, when you hear me go, Cole Gardner, it is those 3 games that were all Ryan Griffin's, and we would know this by now. Now, having said all that, no, Adam, no, they're not going to put in freaking Ryan Griffin for a game to give him a shot. Like,
nor should they.
They're not. Nor should they.
Yeah, nor should they.
I mean, if because you could have had the argument was last year.
Right.
If they didn't do it last year, they're not going to do it this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Bucs are out of it. Jameis is going to be the starter. You could have had the last game or the second half of the last game to put in Ryan Griffin to see what you had. Like, to at least give him a snap. Like, they had their shot. It's the same thing. We're going to get eliminated. Jameis Winston's going to be the quarterback. We're playing meaningless games. Throw Ryan Griffin in there for 1 or 2. It's not going to happen because
that's not how it happens.
That's not because
here's how that happens. Here's the only way that happens. If you have locked up the playoffs, you've locked up home field advantage, and you're resting your starters for that last game or 2,
like the Chiefs did with Mahomes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wait. Oh,
yeah, last year.
Last year. Yeah. That's when that happens. It does not happen when you're losing. It does not happen when you're on the other side of it. It does not happen when your season is wasted. You remember a couple years ago when the Buccaneers just basically had a wasted season and we got down to the last 3 or 4 games and people were like, why are we still starting Jameis Winston?
That doesn't narrow it down.
I think
remember a couple years ago?
It might have been his first season. It might have been his rookie year.
Right.
Maybe it was the next year, but it was the last 3 or 4 games. We were like, we're out of the playoffs. Why are we playing Jameis Winston? He might get hurt. Because that's when you don't pull your guys, even when you're on the losing side.
And back then, he needed the experience.
Exactly. So, Adam, I get what you're saying. We don't give people shots inside the 16 games. They get their shot in practice. They get their shot in camp. And they're trying to go out and win these games because, by God, let me tell you what, if the Buccaneers weren't trying to win that last game against the Saints last year, if Cutter had just called it in and said, okay, we're done with this year, let's just pack it in, and you think if they lost that game to the Saints that Cutter would still be on the staff?
Yeah, he would.
You think so? Oh, yeah, because they already said that they were going to keep him. You're right.
Yeah, right before.
You're right.
Yeah. But you know what would have been different? The Saints would have been playing Minnesota in New Orleans.
Yeah. So, yeah, I want to see Ryan Griffin just like everybody else. I'd like to see him. But it's not going to be hey, let's give him a shot and give him a tryout. That's what the preseason's for. That's what camp is for. And
I think they've seen enough of him. They already know.
They know what they have with him. They've had him on this team for 3 years. They know where they've got him. They've seen what's going on. There's a reason that they keep bringing in other backups. There's a reason that they saw this suspension looming. Well, because they still needed a third quarterback anyway on the team. So, I don't know. It's they know what they have in Ryan Griffin.
He can be a backup.
Yeah. All right. Our buddy Chris emails us in. He says, unfortunately, it's that time of year, Bucs fans, to start looking at the 2019 Buccaneers. Fellas, I tell you what, there's going to be a lot of changes. I could see this team no longer having Gerald McCoy, Levante David, Quan, Donovan Smith, DeMar Dotson, Chris Conti, Brent Grimes, Will Golston, G-Jocks, and so forth. You get my point? It's going to save about $45 million. Obviously, it could be more, but this would be a start to purge some of the losing culture out of the locker room. Is there a more disappointing year? Is it more disappointing this year than it was last year? I'm hoping hold on. Let me finish this and we'll be done with his email. I'm hoping the GM and coach don't cringe at the expectations of winning. Talking about the new ones coming in inevitably. On to 2019, Chris from Virginia.
With the 7th pick in the 2019 NFL draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers take left tackle
you think
out
it's
of Alabama.
Be seventh that low?
I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there.
We won 5 last year and had the 7th, so.
Yeah, it's true. Well, we've only won 3 so far, so. I don't know. Oh, no. Anyway, Chris, you can't send all those people away. And don't worry about the salary cap anymore. As long as Greenberg's in control of it, I don't have a problem with it. It goes up every year by $10 million, and they've
structured these contracts just fine.
Yeah, they know they really know what they're doing.
Yeah. If the team needs something, they'll get it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they'll find it. And if they need something and they get outpriced, they get outpriced. It's like that that McKinnon guy that when Dalvin Cook went down last year, McKinnon did so well for the Vikings, and then the 49ers ended up paying him like Le'Veon Bell money, and then he blew his knee out. But the reports came out that Jason Light and the Buccaneers were interested in him, but when it got to be like, what are you guys doing? That's not worth it. Like, no, we're out. Like, so they're not bullheaded about it. They're not stupid about it. Like, they're going to be fine. I know it hurts right now, and you just want to like point your finger. Like, you have to find a reason why. That's what we do. You've talked about this before. It's been a while, but we're guys. We fix it.
Right.
Like, the team stinks. Okay, what do we do? Well, if we get rid of that guy, that's what we do. And we get rid of that guy, we get rid of that guy, and then get rid of that guy, and then just about what we talked about probably like 20 minutes ago, replace him with who?
Yep. So Chris brings up something that was brought up in an earlier email, and I have not talked about this. I have not droned on about this for a long time, and I don't intend to drone on about this. Probably we'll talk about it a little bit more often, probably much to your chagrin, Ren. The losing culture, purging a losing culture. And let me say this about a losing culture. I know. Hold on. Let me get it out. The losing culture. You're muted, so they can't hear you. The culture is led by a leader. And by the leader, I'm going to talk about the head coach. And the head coach can go in, because all these guys you talk about, Gerald McCoy, Levante David, Quan, Donovan Smith, none of those guys hold as much weight in that locker room that can't be overturned by a guy who's coming in who can lead a team to turn around to a culture of winning. I will also say this, and people can dispute me on this, but I'm going to tell you you're wrong. A winning culture does not come from winning football games. It's the other way around. Winning games comes from having a winning culture. You have to install that culture first. And this is what we saw Tony Dungy do. This is what we've seen the good coaches do. And that will permeate through all these guys that you just talked about, Chris. All of these guys having that winning culture will permeate through those, and it will turn them around. Now, Brent Grimes is going to be gone because he's aging out. Chris Conte is going to be gone because he got stiff-armed into retirement. Djax maybe not, won't be gone. Gerald McCoy, he might be a salary cap hit, honestly. Quan Alexander may or may not be here. Donovan, we've given our thoughts on these guys, but the culture, none of these guys are so impactful in that locker room that they're poisons, at least as far as we can tell. Possibly, from some reports, Deshaun Jackson might be a little bit of a poison. These guys aren't poisons. A winning culture, which is led by the coach, can come in and override all of these guys and turn these guys with it. So that to say, you don't purge the losing culture by getting rid of a whole bunch of people. You purge a losing culture by bringing in somebody who can instill intentionally a winning culture into the team. And that's how you do that, Chris. You don't just go get rid of everybody unless they're actually a poison to the team. That being said, Ren, you're unmuted. You can come back to the conversation now.
What are we talking about?
Exactly. All right. Culture. There we go. You want me to move on? Do you have any comments? Probably not.
On what? Culture?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like,
do you
I'm
think
gonna
everything I just said is... No, I mean...
I'm going to talk to you about culture. Yeah, okay.
I'll give you a chance to say everything that guy
Brent,
just said is bullshit.
Do you have any... but I can't... I don't know anything about culture. I mean, sure. You take seminars about it. It's like you telling me, like, hey, you know the way to run a successful restaurant is? And it's like, I do. You don't. I do. So,
I run a successful pizza shop, but don't get me further than that.
I don't. I do not. I do not want to talk about culture.
Yeah. Kitchen prep for me consists of taking a bag of pepperoni and dumping it into what do you call those? Lexan. That's prep for me. All right. Chopping some onions. All right. Next one comes to us from James. JD, actually. It says, hey, guys, just finished listening to the latest Instant Cast after the Redskins game and thought that I would send out an email. I've been listening to your podcast for a couple of years now and thoroughly enjoy listening to them. Thank you, JD.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Says, I've been a Bucs fan since I first got stationed at MacDill back in '84. Thank you for your service. And have stayed a fan ever since. A longtime Bucs fan here, Ren.
Yeah, 84. Jesus.
Yeah. My wife and I met in Tampa, and we got married there. We bought our first house in St. Pete, and our oldest child was born just around the corner from where the Buccaneers play. Just like all Bucs fans, I want to see them win so badly. I think cleaning house now is the right thing to do once the season ends. I believe that Light has done his best, but it wasn't good enough. To me, cleaning house includes players and coaches. I would try to bring in Bill Polian as a consultant while the owners try to find a new GM and head coach. Thanks for all that you do. Keep it going and go Bucks. JD from South Carolina.
South Carolina? Where's that salsa from?
South Kakalaki.
New York City. Anybody? Pace picante sauce? No, I've expressed my feelings on this sort of like president of operations or culture setter guy. I don't really know if Bill Polian would actually do it. I mean, he's already in the Hall of Fame. He's got a pretty cushy gig at ESPN. Probably never has to leave his house. Just does everything through video and like so. I mean, I do understand about wanting to blow up the front office and the coaching staff, and I understand about blowing up the team. They're not going to blow up the team. It's a very good possibility that the coaching staff is gone, and it's a pretty good possibility that Jason Light is gone. Do I think that the Glazers have to find some football brains, some football people they trust to advise them on their next GM, head coaching search type of deal? Yes, I do.
Don't they already have that, though?
Well, here's the thing. People are like, well, here's the thing that always sort of like perplexes me. It's like, hire Bill Polian to do your hiring, right?
You still have to hire Bill Polian, right?
Exactly.
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know Bill Polian sort of got this great reputation, but he was in charge of the Colts, and the Colts were like terrible. And the Colts were terrible for a long time, and he had the greatest quarterback ever running his team for decades, it felt like. And he got him one Super Bowl. Got him to Super Bowl one time. I mean,
it's true.
That's like.
And who was the coach when they went to the Super Bowl?
Tony Dungy.
Can I tell you where I was in that Super Bowl?
If you want to.
I had just gotten married that Friday night, and we were on our honeymoon in a castle. I watched that in Versailles, Kentucky, and it's pronounced Versailles, not Versailles, for anyone who's wondering. You can Google it. It's called Castle Post. And as the people from Versailles will tell you, we don't call it Paris, we call it Paris. So it's Versailles, it's not Versailles. That's what they'll tell you.
Well,
but
is it did somebody build this
castle?
It's
a legit castle. You can go Google it. I won't tell you the story here. Castle Post in Versailles, Kentucky.
I need to know, was it brought over somewhere by stone?
No. Basically, it's back in the 60s, a couple fell in love with medieval times type stuff and decided to build themselves a castle. And then
so it's not a castle.
And then it's a castle.
It's a replica.
It's not a replica of anything. They designed it. They built it. It's a castle.
It's a castle kit.
It's a castle kit, right?
It's a kit car.
It's actually got its own interesting story. You guys go check that out. Castle Post, Versailles, Kentucky. But anyway,
Versailles. Versailles, Kentucky.
It's not Paris. It's Paris. We call it Versailles.
So anyway, thanks for being a long-time listener. Thank you even more for being a long-time Bucs fan. But it's I get the downtrodden. It's time to blow it up and at the end of the season. But there still is a glimmer of hope.
I agree with.
We can win these next two games. We can win these next two games.
I don't care if we win these next two games or not. I said it at the Instant Cast, and I'm sticking by it. I'm done with this coaching staff. They're not the ones that are taking us anywhere.
Hard to argue with.
I don't know that even winning out the next 7 games is going to change my mind at this point. It's possible, But and I also am very much on the bandwagon. I know Cook wasn't, but I think if they're going to fire him, they just need to go ahead and do it now. But Cook seems to think that there's a legitimate chance that they could still pull it out here by the end of the season, and we could see Dirk Cutter return for year number 4.
No, I don't think so. I just think
I don't
that
think they will either.
No, I'm saying I don't think Cook believes that the reason I want to fire Dirk Cutter is because they might pull it out. I just think that there's no really
There's no
I think
good
he said
reason to.
Yeah, there's no advantage to it. Like it doesn't help your coaching search or whatever. It doesn't help your football team and things like that. And then he talked about how you fall into the trap of, okay, so you promote Monken and he goes, okay, say we fire Dirk today and Monken goes 5-2.
Mm-hmm.
Now all the players love him and blah, 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 blah. But
forced
really
to bring him back. Yeah.
Not forced, but I mean, you've just created another problem for yourself where if you're going to fire the guy anyway, just wait till the end of the year. And then if you really like Monken, have him interview for the job.
Season's already done, right? I mean, he's
I'm
really
not giving up yet, Brent.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Moving on. Next email. We're getting close, guys. Ren, you remember how I told you earlier before we started that I love it when people address you specifically in the emails?
That is not what you said. But yeah, we did talk about something like that.
This one comes to us from Steven. Steven says, hey guys, first I want to let you know I love the podcast that you release. You guys always do a great job and you're very entertaining. Listening to today's podcast, the Instant Cast from the Redskins, I have to agree with everything you said. My only issue is with Brent's complaints about the sunburn. As a longtime Bucs fan growing up in Canada, I haven't even seen the sun in 2 weeks, and the temperature is hovering around around zero, which is your 32, every day, and it's only going to get colder. So please keep up the great entertaining podcast, but no bitching about the temps or the sun. Hopefully one day I'll make it to a home game instead of only seeing them when they play the Bills or the Lions up here. Steven sent from my iPhone.
Yeah, I guess that's sort of the old thing when I'll actually bring up Mark Cook again. When you hear them talk about like the first day of training camp, they're like, "Oh my God, I got like 35 days straight of this crap," you know. Right. And we're like, "Bro, I would cut off like my pinky if I got to watch and hang out at Buck, get media access to one Buck for 30 days, and then get to do it next year, and then get to hang out there during the regular season."
Right.
So I feel what he's saying.
Right. Dude, I'm just saying there are a lot of people that come to Florida every winter and they have Canadian license plates on the back of their car.
It's true. They drive.
That they do. So I just, it's, anyway. All right.
I don't mind it, and I don't think most people do. I mean, an Eskimo, "Hey, don't talk to me about the sun."
Right. No, it's just, I mean, God, it's November and we're still getting sunburns, and I don't get sunburns. I really don't. I don't get sunburned like anywhere else that I go. It's just in Tampa for whatever damn reason. All right, moving on.
Maybe it's the elevation.
Maybe. Oh, sitting up high. Yeah, a little closer to the sun.
Yeah, that 200 feet is like right. you broke the ceiling somewhere.
All right, next email comes to us from Chef Aaron. Chef says, 501 yards, 3 points. How is that even possible?
Is it all caps?
No.
It's not?
No, but he has some multiple exclamation points at the end. Okay. He says, I'm sorry, I can't agree with Dirk that Dirk wasn't to blame for the loss when he absolutely was.
What a shocker.
This offense had problems in the red zone executing all last year when Dirk was calling the plays, and it was deja vu all over again on Sunday. This team scores 28 points a game with Monken calling the plays, and Dirk literally sacrificed Monk and that whole coaching staff's jobs because his ego was bruised that Monk was getting the shine instead of him.
Possible.
I don't care that the offense racked up 501 yards. I'd rather have 220 yards and score 35 points.
Impossible. Unless the defense has like 3 scores.
There you go. This team on offense looked so dejected. You could see it in Mike Evans' face, Fitz's face, and Quiz's face. I didn't look at their faces well enough to know. Probably from those press conferences, I would imagine. He says, I mean, the one day after the defense allowed less than 300 yards of offense and the offense failed to score even once. Dirk said in his presser that they wanted to establish the run with RPOs. Barber had 13 attempts and 61 yards, 4.1 average. Fitz had 41 attempts. Where was he establishing the run game?
First half.
First half, yeah. The game wasn't really ever out of reach, and Dirk abandoned the run game again.
That is true.
Which, that is, we talk about abandoning the run game because the game gets out of reach or you're playing from behind or blah, 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 blah. That wasn't the case in this particular game.
Yeah. I do find that, you hear Cutter say in press conference, well, I thought, he's a big about how many more possessions they're going to get. Well, I thought we were only going to get 2, but we ended up getting 3. Mm-hmm. And when he gets in that mindset, it's, well, this is the last time I have the ball. Then he just quits running it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And instead of the mindset, okay, I'm only going to get it 2 more times. I got to score 1 time. Mixing the run and the pass are still my best ways to move it down the field or get in the end zone.
Well, so does that go back to what I was saying on the other show? Is he just getting impatient?
Yeah, but you were talking about impatience.
I was talking about the red zone. I was.
And you weren't talking about the clock. And don't. That's the way girls argue. Don't do that.
Wow. If you'd like to send an email, you can do that to ren@thepewtercast@gmail.com. All right. He says if Dirk wants to go down with the ship calling plays, then whatever, that's his choice, but he's going to get fired for it and get everybody else fired with him.
Probably.
It says if the Bucs lose these next 2 games, boy, is all this team shit going to hit the fan, and I wouldn't be surprised if this team doesn't win another game. You got a historically bad defense and a head coach, offensive coordinator who cares more about yards than points, which is a recipe for disaster. And Chef knows something about recipes.
Okay, that last part's untrue. Can't prove it. Can't prove that the offensive coordinator cares more about yards than points. And they would deny that every time. What a shock. We got an email from Chef that blames her Cutter for the loss against Washington.
Let's see here.
Was that it?
Yeah, that was it for Chef saying. Let's see here. We're gonna skip that particular email. All right, next email.
What? We're skipping emails?
We're gonna skip one. Yeah, we've covered everything within that particular email. So
should we give him a shout out? Who it is?
It was actually our buddy Chris from Virginia again. So
he sent 2 in.
He sent 2 in. Yeah, he's double dipping. So
okay,
he's already got one. So all right,
quit hogging the spotlight, Chris. I got things to do.
Next
it's not easy. It's not easy for me to sit down in front of a computer for 3.5 hours to record these 2 episodes.
We're going on 4.
I don't need.
Yeah.
I don't. I got. Geez, man. I expected more from a military guy.
Our next email comes from Bryant. Says, "Hey guys, I love
you, Chris.
I just wanted to hear your opinion on whether you guys think that this team is poorly coached or poorly drafted." Great question. Do you think Jason Light is to blame for this team's sorrow, not just in this season, but in the past few seasons, as much as the coaches are? You guys are the best Bucs podcast out there, so keep up the good work.
All of that was a very good question, and that was actually that last part was absolutely true. Who was that?
That is Bryant. I think this might be Bryant's first time emailing in. Bryant, pretty sure that is. You now fall under the category that we have for our Instant Cast show too. You got to email in and let us know how you became a Bucs fan and where you're from.
Yeah. Here's what I'm going to do with this. I like this question so much, I'm actually going to research it and think about it instead of just off the cuff. I don't know if you guys know, but I get these email questions cold.
Yes.
But so because you referenced it, I don't remember if it was on a show or maybe we were just talking about how. Oh, I think I saw it on Twitter where Isbit sort of broke down the NFC South drafts versus Light's draft, and actually sort of had some problems with that. He picked and choose sort of his things, it sort of goes back to this cornerback from the Panthers, Bradbury. And he had such a good game against Evans, and he shut him down, and you kind of go back and watch it and go, okay, well, Mike dropped a couple, and so it wasn't exactly this shutdown game, and everyone's like, well, you could have drafted Bradbury back when you drafted this person. Well, first off, the Panthers drafted 3 cornerbacks that year. 2 of them didn't make it weren't even on the roster opening day the second year. Mm-hmm. So 2 misses there. And Bradbury got benched at some point before this year. He's pretty much had a VH3 type of career.
Yeah.
But since we only see him, no one talked about Bradbury last year when we played the Panthers.
I'll be honest, I don't remember his name coming up before we played them this last time.
Exactly.
I really didn't. I thought he might have been a rookie this year. I really did.
No. I think it was either his 3rd or 4th year. So
Ren, I'm a Buccaneers fan. I don't follow other
teams. I've heard that. Yeah. So anyway, I thought it was really interesting the way Isbitz did it, and I think I'm going to do it the same way. Mm-hmm. Sort of break down the NFC South drafts since Lights got here, and then I'll
I'm sorry, just to give credit for what you're talking about, if anybody wants to go check that out, that was on. It was one of last week's Ira Kaufman podcast. Where Steve Isbitz did that. So if you didn't hear it, you want to go check it out and find out what Ren's kind of talking about there. That's where that was. So
yeah. So, but I'm going to have to actually really give some thought into how I'm going to present my data, I guess.
Yeah.
Or how I'm going to grade or judge the coaches in the NFC South. I think it's a good way to do it because I can't just sit here and pick, well, this was a good decision, this was a bad decision because if it worked out or didn't work out. Yeah. I have to be able to put the Buccaneers coaching staff up against another coaching staff. Mm-hmm. and grade sort of like hard decisions or good decisions or decisions that worked out or didn't work out. So
cool.
Yeah.
I think for me, and I look forward to you doing that. As far as an initial reaction to this, we have consistently praised Jason Light for his drafts on this show, and I'm not going to change that. We also talk about when you judge a person's decisions, at least with this kind of stuff, you can't judge them based on what happens after the fact. You have to judge, was this the right decision with the information that you had at the time? And I think in general, Jason Light has drafted pretty well. I also think that we tend to be a little bit hypersensitive. Like, if all of his 6th round picks don't make it, then he's a horrible drafter. Like, no, that's not necessarily the case. I think what we've heard is if you hit on your draft picks, like if you get like 1 or 2 starters out of your draft class each year, like, or not even starters, like just they stick with your team, like that's a good draft class or something like that. So I think generally Jason has probably been a pretty good drafter. I think that the team hasn't quite worked out. I think his free agency signings probably leaves a little bit to actually lot. I think Jason Light is probably weaker in free agency than he is in the draft. That'd be my guess. But I do think at the end of the day it comes down to poor coaching because he's only seen Lovie Smith and Dirk Cutter and Mike Smith with this. So. Good question, though. I look forward to Ren being able to circle back around to this question. All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna put some thought into this because I think it's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
I have a feeling I'm gonna go both.
Oh, yeah. Right. All right. Final email. It's a short one. It's a good question. It comes in. This is Sebastian from Tampa. Sebastian says, so now that our playoff hopes are over.
And that's not true.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Sebastian on this one. I know mathematically it's not, but it's. Ren, how often is it that you're the optimistic one on the show?
Polls, those aren't scientific.
It's just a question. Nobody cares. So now that our playoff hopes are over, are over now. Oh, how do you guys feel about OJ Howard and the amount of snaps he gets? Should we try to trade Brate and make OJ the number 1 option? Also,
OJ is the number 1 option.
What position should we draft this next draft? I say right guard.
Well, like first round?
Yeah, that's what it says. He doesn't specify.
I thought that was you saying that.
No. He says right guard. So I would not draft a right. Well, I don't. Okay, let me take this one backwards, Ryan. I'll go with this one first. As far as what position you say right guard, if you have a unique talent like a Quentin Nelson,
Right.
sure. I would have been all in on Quentin Nelson this year anyway. And he's a guard, right? He's not a tackle.
He's a guard.
Yeah. If we can find an upgrade at left tackle, I would not be opposed to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that'd have to be and you're going to have to use a very high draft pick to get that one. Outside of those, just because you brought those two up, I think a lot of it depends on what they actually wind up doing with Jameis Winston.
Yeah. Oh, they won't draft. Oh, no, they're not drafting anybody this year.
Yeah, I mean, the quarterback situation isn't great for the draft this year. From everything I've heard,
it's not good. It's not good.
And I'm not a draft guru, so don't listen to me. We also know that Jason Light. Let's assume he's still our GM next year. You don't necessarily just draft position; you draft best player available, and it's some weird amalgam of where best player available meets positional need. But
right.
As you have often said, Ren, I think you might be right. He just tends to go with best position or best player available anyway in the first round.
Yeah.
Regardless of positional need.
Unless it's, incredibly obvious.
Right.
Like what's really at the Buccaneers, like what's only really incredibly obvious is before this year would have been quarterback and wide receiver.
Yeah.
You could have drafted a safety, you could have drafted a corner, or linebacker, probably not either.
Mm-hmm.
So safety, corner, defensive lineman, edge, offensive lineman.
Yeah.
There was a lot of spots. They weren't going to go get a center because of Jensen, but yeah, like it's not in the first round. He gets the best player there, and not in the ones that aren't like painfully obvious. We're not drafting somebody in the first round for that position. Right.
So there's that. If we work this backwards, should we trade Brate and try to make OJ the number one option? As you said offhandedly, Ren, and you're right, OJ is actually still the number one option. I don't love the fact that OJ isn't on the field as much as it feels like he should be, but you are only allowed 11 guys on the field at a time. So if you're going to if you're going to run 3 wide receivers, you're only going to get 1 tight end, maybe. Or if you're going to pull in like a fullback, you got to start robbing from Peter to pay Paul at some point. But I would definitely love to see OJ. The thing that I have a problem with is we keep hearing, or at least we did a while ago, of how much we love these 2 tight end sets. And when they drafted OJ, it was we got OJ and then we've got Cam Brate, and we're going to be able to run all these 12 personnels, and we're going to have 2 tight ends out on the field at all times, and we're just going to dominate. And that's not actually the way they're using them this year. And that's not what we're seeing this year. It doesn't bother me that we paid Cameron Brate however much we paid him, $12 million a year or whatever, and we're only using him X amount of times. Those two numbers don't correlate to me. It bothers me more that we're just not using Brate like we're just not using OJ enough. I feel like we should be using both of those guys a lot more. I think we should be using them a lot more together. But we're not, because we have a really deep tight end group that can move the ball vertical down the field. And you know what? Here's the thing. It's been working. This game notwithstanding, it's been working. As we've repeatedly said, it's not on the offense. This year's record is not the fault of the offense. They've been moving the ball. They've been scoring. They've been getting a lot of points. So however we've been doing it, with Brate, with OJ, whatever, the offense has been doing its job outside of this one last game. So yeah, I'd like to see OJ get more snaps. I don't think we should trade Brate. OJ is the number one option, and we'll draft best player available.
Yeah, I'm with you, except for the OJ thing. Like I think this is just one of those prisoner of the moments. He only got 2 targets, and it's like, where's OJ's snaps?
Yeah.
He just caught 2 touchdowns in Cincinnati a couple weeks ago. So there's a lot of things. He hurt his knee, he's a little gimpy. Mm-hmm. They do run a lot of different sets. I think the reason they don't run a lot of 2 tight end sets with Brate and Howard is because Brate can't block. That's why I see O'Clair in there instead. So yeah, and I haven't really seen the breakdown of plays. You know how Greg Allman usually tweets out. I haven't seen those like the past couple weeks or even this week.
I can tell you this, if this is helpful at all. OJ Howard is, after 9 games, is playing 60% of the snaps.
Okay.
I'm seeing it right here in front of my face. So
yeah. Now, okay. See, well, here's the thing. Like, no one was talking about how OJ Howard wasn't on the field the first couple of weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he wasn't a huge part of the offense. He became a huge part of the offense sort of right in that mix of Fitzpatrick and Jameis doing that transition. And people started to figure out, like, oh, wow, this guy's pretty uncoverable. Then he got hurt. We had the bye week, got hurt. He has dropped a few passes, too. But it's not really how much he's on the field. It's how many targets he's getting. That's what it is, And so this week we've only had 2 targets. So now it's like we're not getting him the ball enough. But then, I agree with Coach Cutter what he said in the press conference, because this was brought up to him about it. Hey, OJ only got 2 targets. And he goes, well, who do you want me to not throw to as much? It's like, okay, so I got to take some from Mike to give to OJ, or Deshaun to give to OJ, or from Brait or Humphreys or Godwin. Now, this week would have been easy. Everyone would have said, we'll just take him from Quiz. Right. he
right.
caught like 8 balls.
Well,
but
I mean, if I can interject here, looking at the numbers for this season, 2019 or 2018, Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson are tied for the largest percentage of targets at 16% each.
Okay.
Chris Godwin comes up next at 14%. And then Adam Humphries and Jacquizz Rodgers are tied for third with 12%, followed up by OJ Howard, who's only getting 11%.
Well, I think
but that's all within a 11 to 16% ratio. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so the top is getting 16 and he's getting 12. And I think you really can't argue with any of those people above him except for Jacquizz Rodgers, which if you looked at that table the week before, he wouldn't be there. He just happened to have like I said, like a 7 target game. So, so I guess I'll talk about who you think we should draft. Geez, God. From where I think we're going to be, I think a guard's going to be too high because, like you said, if it's not like a Quentin Nelson type, he's not going to last till where I think we are. I mean, he's like Quentin Nelson's like a top 5 talent, Yeah. And let
me ask you this: where do you think we'll be when we draft? Like realistically, where do you think we'll be? We won 5 games last year. We were number 7.
I think we're going to be lower than I've been talking about, honestly. So let me think real quick. I think we go 7-9. So that puts us probably somewhere between 17 and 21.
Wow. Okay. I think you're even at 7 and 9. I think you're a little high. I think at 7 and 9 we're probably somewhere between 10 and 15.
Oh wait, yeah, okay, you're right.
Yeah.
I was thinking. Because
we went 9 and 7 and pick 19 a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So.
I got those backwards. Yeah. So okay. So 7 and 9.
So between 10 and 15.
Yeah, that's about right.
Okay.
Yeah. So, if we're lucky, top 10 pick.
You are way more optimistic than I am right now, but that's okay.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I'm more optimistic than a lot of people. I know. It's all right. I'm sure. Don't worry. Like you don't have to keep looking over your shoulder. I'm coming up fast. I'm sure I'll be there before we know it. Like the next loss to a non-division opponent, I'm there with you.
All right, Sunday, here we come. All right. All right, Red. That is going to do it for all of our emails and for this episode as well. So I want to say thank you to everybody who took the time to write in emails. It was quite a large group. I think this might officially be our largest group of emailers even though a couple people double dipped on us. But thank you to all of you guys who took time to do that. We love and we talked about for a while, Ren, like it'd be cool if we eventually got enough emails that this could be its own show. And
and then
we've been able to do that all year long.
And then I said, be careful what you wish for.
Right.
Yeah. So there's that.
All right.
No, this is. It really is like I remember when I first got into like, wouldn't it be so cool that people actually listen to us and cared enough to like write us emails where just like 1 a week or 2 a week, we're actually like, yeah, we could actually do like maybe an hour show on it.
Yeah.
And now we're doing like
an hour and a half
shows,
yeah.
and we probably could make it a 2-hour show, and it's just like that's a lot. That's a lot. But right after I think that's a lot, it's just so great. It really is. It really is really great. It just it's I don't know. It's just sometimes it's just weird because my little world, it's like me, here in the office. And it's just me talking to you on the computer,
right?
And you sort of forget that it gets to, Paul and I'm going to get Paul and Land O'Lakes, right. or Kentucky or Canada, and then we got I don't think one person called from the state of Florida during Instacast.
Is that true?
I think so.
Yeah, you might be right.
I don't think one person called in the state of Florida.
Yeah, and hey, listen, we say it's in the title of this show. This is the Pewtercast, a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan podcast. And we are fans, you guys are fans, and we're in this together, doing it together. So I love it. I love the interaction, and thank you guys for that. It always makes for good jump-offs. Yeah.
Are we? Have you given any more thought to the name change?
The name change?
Yeah, the Pewtercast, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan podcast starring Rundax. Maybe did you not get that email?
No. Well, we put that to the board. The board actually talked about that, Ren. And
oh yeah. Well, yeah. What they say? Can I see the minutes to that meeting?
All right, Ren. Well, with that, why don't you tell the folks where they can find you on the internet for the very last time? No. You can find me on Twitter at Rendax, REN_DAXT. I'm always down to talk Buccaneers football optimistically for at least one more week. He's not getting fired, folks. It's okay. It's just a joke. If you guys want to find
someone who doesn't get paid,
that's very true. If you guys want to get a hold of me, you can find me at Brent Allen Live across all the social medias, and you can find the show at the Pewtercast on Twitter and on Facebook. Find us or email us to thepewtercast@gmail.com. We will get to those on an upcoming episode here of the Pewtercast. And thank you to all of our patrons, all of our supporters. Go over to patreon.com/thepewtercast to find out more about that. We do have 4 shows a week that come out, Ren, and the next one coming up is our Buck in the News show, where we'll be talking about all the roster transactions that have happened this week. We'll be talking about all the news and the headlines that have come out, and we'll take a look at the upcoming Giants game as we look at our injury reports and inactives and anything that we have to preview that game. We'll also be back Sunday night for the Instant Cast. Might have a little bit of change, so stay tuned to the Twitter feed to find out all the news regarding that. But that will be happening on Sunday night, and then we'll be back again with our final thoughts next week. So until then, guys, thanks again for everybody who's joined us. Thanks to everybody who's downloading the show on the podcast feed as well. You guys really make this show go. So with all of that, until next time, guys, go Bucks.